The Canadian military disregarded legal advice in imposing vaccine mandates. Internal document from Epoch Times obtained shows. Now, I wanted to get some legal advice on this story, so I think I found the best legal advice here. Catherine Christensen of Valour Legal, thank you so much for joining me today. You are representing a few different lawsuits against the Canadian military, the Canadian Armed Forces, to sue the government for their imposition of vaccine mandates on the unwilling members of the force. What do you make of this story?
Well, I was quite intrigued to see the story, and it appears to me that somehow the Epoch Times got their hands on a briefing from the Judge Advocate General, who are the lawyers for the generals and admirals in Ottawa. And what it appears to be is my legal cases suing the Canadian Armed Forces appears to be on the right path, because it's quite clear that the Chief of Defence Staff was told by his own lawyers not to bring in the mandate, that he couldn't do it. So that's a major thing, and that's what I've been saying for 2.5 years now.
So they've made your case for you. I mean,
pretty much.
Oh, okay. So and this is leaked information. I'm assuming this isn't stuff that they wanted to get out there. Interesting timing. Top officials signing off, taking an end of career approach at this point. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah. So this news story breaks, and it kind of really took off, of course, because of the topic. And then the next day, the Chief of Defence Staff, Wayne Eyre, announced that he's retiring. And shortly after that came out, then it also announced that Jody Thomas is retiring. And she was the Deputy Minister of the Ministry of National Defence when the mandates were introduced. So they are both defendants in the two mass torts that I'm bringing.
Right, so. Right. Well, they'll still have to show up. Obviously, this is part of how the legal system works. You can't back out of that just because you change jobs. But
yeah, I did tweet out to General Eyre to leave his forwarding address because he's got some depositions.
Okay. Okay. Right. Bold of you. That's interesting. So you didn't see this document. This is something that's been leaked by the Epoch Times. Is that correct?
That's what it. Yeah, I haven't seen the actual document.
Now, what is this?
My kind of best guess.
So I'm going to leave a link for everybody in the description down below. They can all go read the article from themselves. I was interested to learn of certain things that were mentioned in this about how far they went with the measures of coercion, going as far as having soldiers stay in tents outdoors in the middle of winter, and then even denying them heaters until they then acquiesced and went along with this vaccination program. And we're talking about informed consent here. This is the biggest issue of your lawsuit, but also of a moral case in this here in Canada, where people are legitimately were coerced into going along with this program, this vaccination program. And I know a lot of people think when you join the military, you relinquish a lot of your rights, but this is definitely not one of the rights you relinquish. That's correct, right?
Yeah, in fact, if you join the Canadian military, you don't give up any rights as a Canadian citizen. Where people get confused with that is that you do sign on for what's called ultimate liability. So you agree that if it's required during a military mission that you surrender your life, or perhaps there's permanent disability, that you're willing to do that. That's ultimate liability. But that doesn't deny you any of your rights at all.
Including your right to informed consent on something like this.
In fact, the Military External Review Committee, looking at grievances about the COVID mandates, actually has said that Section 7, bodily autonomy, was breached by ordering them to have these shots.
So where is your lawsuit at the moment? At what stage? I mean, I understand that there's two of them. There's one with over 300 CAF members, and then there's also one with, I believe, just over 100 CAF members. That it's not like a class action lawsuit. We're understanding this now. You can't just join in after the fact. So if there's another lawsuit, this is the reason for the second one. How is that coming?
Well, it's very interesting because the Crown was supposed to provide us with what's called an affidavit of documents by the end of November. And that basically is a list or an index of all of their evidence that they have to defend against the lawsuit. So we served ours. They're supposed to serve theirs back in 30 days. Ours is over 150 pages of just a list of the documents that we have. They failed to do it. They didn't produce the evidence. So I went ahead and I put a motion into the court to say that I want them to produce that list of documents within 15 days. And if they don't, I want their defense struck, and that leaves them without a defense. And I go from there to say they didn't defend. The Crown got quite angry with me for doing this. It's still before the courts. It's done by written argument. So I'm waiting on a judge to make a decision. But then they tried to say that they wanted this all done by their own rules. And I was like, no, I'm going to go by the rules of court. Thank you.
Well, you'd assume that. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. So I'm new to this whole legal game, and I've been watching a bunch of cases since the pandemic. And I know a lot of Canadians have been watching a lot of cases. A lot of people like to say they know what they're talking about law. I tend to go with the experts. So one of these tactics that I've been seeing go along, and this has been in a lot of cases, where they don't bring their defense forward right away, and then they wait for last minute, and then they dump a bunch of documents on the other side. Is this what you suspect that they're trying to do in there, or was it just like government work? They just never get anything done.
I think there's some strategy to it. I think it's they're trying to stretch things out, trying to run a game, because we're coming close to changing governments. So the question becomes, do they want to deal with this before the Liberals are gone, or do they want to leave it for the Conservatives to deal with? So I think that's part of it in the background. But the other part of it is that I think they're worried. I think when they see what the documents that we have, because not all of our access to information requests have been fulfilled. And in fact, the Office of the Information Commissioner just brought a lawsuit against the Department of National Defense because they're refusing to give documents that we've asked for.
Right.
So the Information Commissioners brought their own lawsuit against the Canadian Armed Forces. And another example is when General Fortin sued them, his lawsuit was settled because they produced no documents. They produced no evidence. They said, oh, his emails and notes didn't exist. And he's saying, yes, they did, because I wrote them. I know that there's emails. That you don't persecute a general at that level with nothing of record. And we've got another one that the Information Commissioner is looking into, where the information request from the Office of the Commissioner sent us a letter saying the Canadian Armed Forces says these items that you're looking for don't exist. Dated on the same day as a letter from the Canadian Armed Forces saying, oh, we already sent you those documents. So which is it?
Right.
Do they have them? Or do they not have them? So
it sounds like a game that they're playing here.
Yeah, they're well known for playing this game. It really came out in the Admiral Norman trial, where a whistleblower came forward and said that they had changed all the file names so that when you searched for anything with Admiral Norman, it wouldn't show up. And they'd say there's no record, but there was.
So question is, with this data dump and us getting this is basically a big present for you in your case. If you win your case, what are the consequences of this moving forward?
The consequences it opens the door for abuse of power lawsuits in public service, RCMP. Certainly, some of the other civilian ones could try to use the same argument that we brought forward, that they went way over their bounds, abused charter rights, abused people, and so it opens that door.
Well, justice is what people are looking for, and that's something we're hoping to see. Thank you so
Mhm.
much. Thank you so much, Christian, Catherine, for joining me today, and for all the work that you're doing on the legal side. I know it's frustrating and it takes time, but thank you for being there fighting for us.
You're very welcome, and I look forward to bringing the vaccine injury lawsuit against Veterans Affairs here shortly.
Well, I'll
So,
have you back to talk about that.
yeah, sounds good.